Just to let you guys know, this is a brand new Cup of Joe that I'm going to be doing as often as possible at the conventions I go. It'll be guest specific. It'll hopefully always be a surprise. Maybe some of you know who it is, but shh, if you do. And the idea is just for me to just talk to people about storytelling. And those storytellers can come in all shapes, forms, sizes. So the person, I'm going to bring in today, my first guest at this, my inaugural live Cup of Joe, is a very, very good friend of mine. We've known each other for quite a while. But I still, to make these interviews interesting, I wanted to do a little bit of digging and ask questions that the guest maybe doesn't get asked quite often, that you guys don't get to know. So when you meet our guests, you're going to know immediately what they do, but we're probably going to avoid asking too much about that because you guys know this stuff. So I had to, dig in, talk to their parents, their friends, and got some great stuff. This is not unlike the Stan Lee interview that I did, and probably got to know more than I really needed to know. But it's true. If it's true what they say that that you could judge a person by the people closest to them, now I understand why I love this person so much, because their friends and family are outstanding. So let me tell you a couple of things I found out about this person before they come on stage. So he's a master at his craft, never stops learning. He's a fantastic father, a bit of a prankster, so a world-class storyteller. This I didn't know. He's incredibly competitive, and he's passionate about, he'd call it football, I'd say soccer. Here's another one. He only wears black, white, gray, and dark blue. I've seen him wear another color, but you know what? I have two people here who I think would do a better job at introducing this person. Zuzu and Carly, can you guys come up here? Come on up here, real quick. Come on, girls. Past and present. You guys know who the guest is, don't you? Yeah? Are you fans? Yeah? Okay, you want to tell the audience who it is?
Charlie Cox!
There it is. Thanks, girls. Charlie! There he is. All right, guys. I should have been in the red, right? Yeah, you should. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Oop. I sit here, Joe. What did you say? No, okay. I love how slowly you walk down. You make those applause.
I'm pretty nervous hearing that.
You remember
and I'm standing there thinking, that's not true. I don't wear black, white, and blue.
No, I got this from very, very good sources that those are your colors. But you do wear red. We forced you. We forced the red on you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Not super competitive. Not true.
We'll find out. Okay, so listen, we're going to bounce around a little bit because we've known each other for a really, really long time. So I'm trying to pull from sources to find out stuff that these guys will find really interesting. Look, everybody knows you play Daredevil. You've done the junkets. You've asked a million questions about Daredevil. So we really haven't seen each other much this summer. I mean, you've been traveling. I've been traveling, but you also filmed a new movie, and I purposely didn't ask you any details about it because I kind of wanted to find out, along with everybody else, about this new movie. Whatever you could tell us about it at this point.
Oh yeah, God, I don't even know what I'm allowed to say. I'm probably allowed to talk about it as much as I like, but coming from Marvel, I'm always in fear that I'm not.
Yes, we have shield ninjas that would tell
Yeah, a lot of people over here don't know about it. If you're British or you're from the UK, it was very well-known story. A couple of years ago, 2015, there was a robbery in the Diamond District in London, a place called Hatton Gardens. And there's it's a very famous Diamond District. There's one particular safe depository where all of the shops on that avenue, where they keep all their money and their diamonds and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, on Easter weekend, the morning after Easter weekend, they showed up to work and there'd been a robbery at this place. They'd broken in, they'd stolen millions and millions and millions. I think no one quite knows exactly how much, but it's estimated between the estimation, I think, is somewhere between 50 and 250 million pounds worth of diamonds were stolen. Anyway, and they started looking around for these guys, and you know, there was talk about this Albanian group called the Pink Panthers who might have done it, and it was clearly a really high-end team of thieves and very meticulously planned. Anyway, it turned out to be a bunch of geriatrics, all in their 70s, who broke into this safe depository, and they just did it in an old-fashioned way. You know, they jumped down the elevator shaft, or they were probably pulleyed down the elevator shaft, and they drilled a hole. And the reason they got caught is the robbery itself was perfect, and the reason they got caught is because afterwards they all talked about it on their cell phones. Anyway, it was a really like the one guy who got away was the only young guy, and they don't know much about him. They call him Basil. They don't really know his real name. So that was the part I played. And but it was a really great bunch of British actors. It was a dream for me because it was Michael Caine and Jim Broadbent and Ray Winston and all those guys. Yeah, so finished that and waiting for it to come out.
Awesome. So I want to ask you a question, Charlie. If you weren't an actor, what would you want to be? What's your dream job?
Well, it would be soccer player, it'd be football player. I'm just, when I hear that question, I feel like I have to be in somewhere realistic.
No, it's fine.
If it's a fantasy, I would probably be I'd be a football player. That's my great passion. But if I'm thinking realistically, I'd love to travel. I'd love to be like a travel journalist of some sort. I'd love to, you know, my job to be to go around the world and write about different cultures and different, you know, countries, and just, you know, spend your whole life seeing the world. And again, this is based in, the other one that always pops to mind, and is based in no way on any sort of skill or in fact, any experience whatsoever, but I always thought it'd be cool to be like a really high-end landscape gardener.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, there's something cool about being creative.
I got a house in Jersey if you want to come over and just practice a little.
Just start practicing, yeah. But like, I've never been able to keep a plant alive in my life, so it's not realistic, really.
You know, it's interesting you bring up football because you know, as we got to know each other, we both realized, you know, we're huge sports fans. I don't follow football, and you've never been to really gotten into baseball, and I brought you to a baseball game at Citi Field back when it was worth watching a game at Citi Field. And you brought your acting, one of your dialect coaches, right? Martin came with us.
Acting coach. Acting coach, yeah, Martin.
And so I called up I have partial season tickets at Citi, and I called up my agent. I said, listen, I'm bringing a friend and first time, and could we get good seats, better seats than what I have? And he gave us front row right there. And I was sitting there going, son of a gun, man. I used to sit in the rafters when I was a kid my entire life. And this guy's first game at Citi Field, he's like right there in the front row on television.
Yeah.
But you know, all sports teams, right? I'm a Mets fan, and it kills me. Yankees are in the playoffs, and I throw up in my mouth a little bit. But so. Yes, thank you. I agree. Don't jinx it. Who's your team?
So my team is Arsenal. Yeah,
Wait, let me stop for a second. You're not just a fan. You are a fanatic, right? Did you not buy a house near the... Yeah. You're just going to say how you're not, but all right, go ahead. Tell me how you're not. You just bought a house by this time.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a slightly longer story than that. You know, growing up, the north part of London wasn't necessarily... Arsenal play up north, in North London, and I grew up southwest. I grew up actually next to a team called Chelsea, who I'm not very fond of. Yeah, I would get the train up to North London when I was a kid and go and watch the games, and my mum and dad would always be like, be real careful up there, go straight to the stadium, get a hot dog, come straight home, don't talk to anyone, don't... And every time I would go, I'd always think, I really like it up here, you know? And then, so eventually when I got old enough and in a position to buy a place, I bought up next to the stadium.
Right, okay. Sure, that's a good excuse.
Yeah.
Now, again, I tried to do some research on Arsenal and asked some soccer fans.
You know what color they wear?
Is it red? There you go. Okay, but
I would never have considered playing Daredevil if he didn't wear red.
Okay. Oh yeah. So right. you guys have songs, like, but not just one team song, where it's like a constant revolving. I mean, explain that to me, because I tried looking it up online, and it's just like song after song after song. I mean, what's up? What is that?
Right, I guess you guys don't do that here.
No, we don't have songs that continue.
Yeah, we like to sing.
Or for individual players. You know?
Yeah, we have every player has a song. In fact, there's one player.
We don't sit there like, look at this dude. Or any,
yeah, every player's got a random different song, and often they're quite clever and ingenious. But one of our great players, actually, for the longest time, didn't have a song. It just never kind of, because they kind of happen organically. It's not like we all go on some forum and like make them up. They just someone starts singing it, and I guess it catches on, and then it becomes their song. But one of our players now does have a song, and the song is Lauren Koscielny, He Wants His Own Song. That's the song.
Now, I hear you have a wonderful singing voice. Can you sing that for us?
No way in hell that I'm singing.
Come on.
I said I know that Joe spoke to some people, and I was like, there's some things that I'm really happy for you to joke about. Like, there's no way in hell that I'm singing.
Well, look.
Let me just tell you something about singing, right? When I was in I grew up in the central London, and there was a school opposite my house, and I could see the playground from my house, right? And so I could see them all hanging out, and I said to my mum and dad, I'd like to go to that school because it's right there. And my mum and dad were like, yeah, okay, we'll look into it. It's, just so you know, it's the feeding school for the Westminster Cathedral Choir, right? Which is the Westminster Cathedral in London is a huge, beautiful, ancient cathedral, and they have an international choir that travels the world singing, and they have a school that feeds that choir, right? And anyway, they also take other kids, evidently, because I got it. You didn't have to sing to get into the school, but I went to the school, but I had to leave after a year because there was the international choir, there was the kind of the church choir, and then there was the school choir, and every week I was the only kid, man, playing football, soccer at break time, because they all had choir practice, and every week I would try and audition to get in one of these damn choirs. And like, it is the only school I've ever been to where not being in the choir was uncool, you know?
So you talked about Chelsea, but you know, like, it's Mets, Yankees here, right? Or Yankees, Red Sox. I mean, everybody has their rival. Hush, we're not talking about you, okay? It's not you. So, I mean, who's the rival? Who's Arsenal's, like, true...
Spurs.
Huh?
Spurs, Tottenham. Tottenham.
Really?
And that's really, talking about songs, that's really funny, because when I go to bars, we say, it's Tottenham. That's how you say it, Tottenham. But it's spelt Tottenham. Right? And it's the one thing when I go to bars in the States to watch my team play, and they sing the Tottenham songs. We've got a bunch of songs about Tottenham, like We Hate Tottenham, blah, blah, blah. But it's the one songs that never quite work in the States because everyone tries to sing We Hate Tottenham, and it just goes on too long, you know?
Well, you know, so I wanted to bring a little edge to this interview, you know, because we know each other, and I sometimes feel like, you know, maybe sometimes the better interviews are when they're a little more acrimonious, right? So could you hold this for me for 1 second? Sorry. I just wanted to let you know.
I'm so nervous right now. Oh, my God.
I don't know who the hell they are, but
yeah, that's funny. That's funny. I actually saw at a convention, I saw a guy wearing a DD, wearing DD, and I was literally about to be like, oh, cool. And then I saw he had a Tottenham. I was like, nah, fuck that guy.
I literally won't sign books for people who wear Yankee hats, or at least I give them a hard time. So, you recently became a dad.
I did.
Yeah? Woo! Cutest child on the planet.
And ironically, she is a huge Arsenal fan.
Yeah? Yeah. So, you know, like all us fathers, especially new fathers, I'm not quite as new, but what perspective has it given you, not just on, like, you know, who you are, the future, but also on insights into your own parents? Did you gain anything? I mean, has that hit you yet?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm sure this is pretty kind of common stuff for anyone who's had kids or whatever. But, like, you know, it does that thing where it really makes you appreciate who your, you know, what your parents do. Yeah. You know, and a lot of that's kind of in some ways obvious, but you just get to feel it in a different way. You know, like the sacrifices that you make. And so she's only a year old. You know what I mean? We're just beginning this journey, but it's like this morning I got up with her at 5:30. It was 6 o'clock, and you know, made her breakfast, and she was just so grumpy this morning. You know, and it was and I was just like, sweetheart, let me tell you something. I don't want to be up either right now. So, yeah, I was saying we went on holiday with my folks this year, and I was saying to my wife how as a couple, if you go on a holiday with your parents when you're like in your 20s or whatever, it's not really a holiday. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're with your folks. If you don't go on holiday if you go on holiday without your parents when you have a kid, it's not really a holiday, you know what I mean? So it was pretty awesome going on holiday because they were great with the baby, and they took her and looked after her and taught us things, and it's pretty cool.
That's great. And you know, I've had the distinct pleasure of meeting your mom and dad, and I gotta say they're amazingly special people.
Yeah, they're good folks.
Can you tell us a little bit about? And actually, I just want to interject. My favorite story about your mom that you tell all the time is like, she only sends you your bad reviews.
Yeah, it's not quite true. Like, I don't want to paint her, but she's just like, you know, my mom is, you know, she's great value, man. She's a great human, and I'm very, very close to my mom and dad. But they, you know, they both are able to see the funny side and the lighthearted side to being an actor and being in movies and being recognized and that kind of stuff. And you know, she'll be up at night and reading stuff on Google, which I don't do, and she knows I don't do that. So she'll send me the stuff that she thinks I should see because it's funny, you know. And the one that I remember getting when I first got cast as Daredevil, you know, there's a lot of people who had no idea who I was, and there was one comment on one of the forums that said, "Yeah, I don't know who this guy is, but I don't like his face." Thanks, Mom.
And your dad, I mean, they came over for dinner. Was it last year? And your dad and I got into this very, very long conversation. And you never told me your dad was a publisher.
My dad's a publisher, yeah.
And I probably
was, yeah.
Yeah, I had more in common with your dad than I do with you. And we had this great conversation. Yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting history, right? With him involved in publishing. I mean, he did startups and.
Yeah, but it's funny because there's kind of a disconnect there because he worked in he published kind of political textbooks. Do you know what I mean? Rather than comic books.
Yeah. But and also, sorry, I just want to skip ahead here a little bit. Siblings, I mean, but you're one of 5, right? But there was a huge gap, correct?
One of 5. I'm the youngest by 10 years.
And you were raised Catholic.
AKA, we call that a mistake.
Right. And you were raised Catholic, right? Like,
I was, yeah.
Much like Daredevil. And your brother Toby passed along a story about.
Please don't tell me you spoke to my brother Toby.
I did not get to speak.
You didn't get to speak to him.
I didn't get to speak to Toby, but he sent along a story about you at church. You know, during the that point in Mass.
Oh, yeah.
You want to tell that story because that's
my family find this so funny. I think it's pretty lame, to be honest, but I'll tell it anyway. There's if you're Catholic, you'll know, and if you're not, you may not. I don't know. There's a point in the church service where the priest will say, it's now time to, I don't know what the actual terminology is, but it's now time to offer each other a sign of peace. And you say, peace be with you, right? But for the longest time, I'm very English and polite. I didn't know that's what everyone was saying, so I thought it was pleased to meet you. And my family thought that was so cute that they'd never told me. So like, it wasn't until I was like 14, I was like, my friend was like, what did you just say to me? I was like, pleased to meet you. And he's like, it's peace be with you, dude. We're in church.
It's I'll tell you quick. You know, we have somebody who works somewhere called CB, right? CB Cebulski, and my daughter's grown up knowing CB, and literally like a year ago, I was writing CB an email or something, and she looks at the email. She's like, "Who's CB?" And I'm like, "CB," and she's like, "Oh my God, I've been calling seaweed for all this time." But nobody knows. She's probably cringing over there. So what I also loved about your parents and talking to them about you know, how you became a performer, an actor. And only because it touched home with me because my parents bucked the trend back when I was a kid, and instead of saying, you know, you need to be a doctor or a lawyer like kids of my generation, first generation born in the States, were sort of pushed to do, your parents saw something in you and bucked a trend when it came to, you know, sort of the higher learning universities and stuff like that. Can you tell us a little bit like what they saw?
Yeah, and that's again, like, now that I'm much older, I look back on that and I'm kind of amazed that you know, they were able to do that. And I think that's partly because of the kind of people they are. I think it's also because they'd had 4 kids and they'd obviously hoped that all of those kids would go on to college, and none of them did. And so by the time it got to me, you know, I'm 20 years younger than my oldest sister. And so when it got to me, they kind of were like, they'd got to the point where they were like, just do what you want to do, you know. But no, yeah, I was at a school and we did a lot of drama, and I started doing drama. I started getting involved in drama initially because I had really bad skin. Like I had really bad acne as a you guys call it that? You know, yeah. I had really bad acne as like a 14-year-old, and or whatever. And on the weekends, all my buddies would go and hang out with the girls, and I was too embarrassed. I was too shy to go and do that. So I just got involved in theater because it was an excuse, you know. Yeah, and I just kind of did a lot of theater at school and really enjoyed it. And one of my dear friends, who was a really good actor, and we did all the plays together, and he was, you know, we were always fighting for the best parts, and he one day he went home and told his mom and dad, you know, I think I want to be an actor. And they were like, go to your room right now and think about what you just said, you know. And he wasn't allowed to be. It was just, they said, we'll talk about it when you get out of college. And then it was not even an option for him. And so for me to, you know, my mom and dad said to me, you know, you're really good at this. Why don't you consider doing it as a career? So maybe I wouldn't speak so fondly of that moment had it never worked out, you know.
You could have been a landscaper. Boarding school, though, flashing back a little bit, right? It seemed like that was a formative time for you. And your friends say that you tell great stories about boarding school. And I heard about a hypnotist at one point. Yeah, you're just remembering now.
Yeah. Have any of you guys ever seen or witnessed a hypnotist or hypnotism? Look, I don't know. I don't want to make the story too long. It's one of the best days of my life. At the end of the school year, I don't know what, at the end of your time at school, and I was at this boarding school for 10 years or whatever it was, and also I have to preface it by saying, you know, you live with these guys. Like I lived in dorm rooms with these guys. I knew they were like brothers to me. I knew them like the back of my own hand because we would go away to school for months, and at the end of the term, at the end of the final year, the treat at school, they brought in this hypnotist to do like to do a show, and some of my friends got hypnotized, and you know, first of all, there's no doubt in my mind how powerful that stuff is. It just blew my mind. But also, seeing your best friends get hypnotized is one of the funniest things you can ever imagine, because you know them so well, so you know what they're capable of, and you know, you know, just the looks on I just tell this one story real quick. You know, there was this one kid. This hypnotist came in. We volunteered. There's 100 kids, and we volunteered on the night. So there was no chance of any kind of funny business. And I think about 20 people went up, and about 12 of them it actually worked on, and the other 8 had to go and sit back down because it didn't work. It doesn't always work, right? There's this one kid called Rich, and his grandfather, his father, and both of his brothers were in the RAF. They were fighter pilots, right? And that was all he was ever going to do. All he talked about was planes. That was his thing. And anyway, he was one of the kids who got hypnotized. So they were up there going through the show, and we're all laughing, and like, you know, it's too funny. Like they're doing this stuff that they would never want to do in front of people. And he gets this one part of the show where he's like, okay, now when I click my fingers, you're all going to sleep. And when I click my fingers a second time, you wake up and you're flying a plane. And then I'm going to click my fingers a second time, and one of your engine goes. And then I'm going to click my fingers a third time, and then the second engine goes, and you guys are free falling. So he does this thing, and he goes through it. And of course, you know, they're all flying the plane, and he clicks their fingers, and they all kind of get a shock like this, and they're like, oh God, and they look out the window, and, you know, like to try and press some buttons or whatever, I don't know. And we're all laughing. It's like the horror on their faces. You'd have to be the best actor in the world to be able to pull that kind of stuff off. And then he clicks his finger a second time, or third time, whatever it was, and all of them just start like screaming and looking like, ah, ah, and holding onto their chair like this, except for this one kid, Rich Fox, right? Who, I gotta put this down, who literally goes like this. He goes, he injected himself, and the hypnotist was like, what's this kid doing? And we were like, he injected himself, he's a pilot. He could already fly a plane at this point, you know what I mean? It was the funniest, and just seeing him do that in front of, next to 11 other guys who were screaming in terror. I mean, it must have been traumatizing for those guys. It was so,
Well, you know what the worst part is? He said, screw it, I'm not rescuing anybody.
yeah.
So, again, I know you really well, and I've heard stories of sort of young Charlie, and you mentioned the shyness a little bit. How do you think the kids, let's say when you were 12 in French class, how do you think today they would describe that Charlie Cox? Who did they meet?
Oh, God, I don't know. Like friends from...
Friends, yeah, just folks that knew you, you know, not knowing, you know, that you would then move on to, you know, become the actor that you are.
I don't know. God, that's a really hard question. I mean, like, I also, because I'm just, everything is sent through the filter of when you're kids, all you ever do is make fun of each other.
Let's narrow it down. Your best friend is?
So my best friend is Charlie.
Right.
And true story, my dad, my mom and dad, we moved down to outside of London just before I was born. And my dad was in church, actually, and the priest was late, and he was talking to another guy. This other guy said, oh, you know, my wife's pregnant. And my dad said, oh, yeah, so is mine. And then 2 weeks later, they were in church, and this guy saw my dad. He went up and just said, oh, just so you know, we had a little boy called Charlie. And my dad was like, yeah, so do we. And he's been my best friend my whole life.
So how would Charlie describe the 12-year-old Charlie?
A 12-year-old?
12-year-old.
I guess the word that I think of when my friends joke about me is that I'm very enthusiastic about things. Like even I was in the car on the way over here with my buddy Sean. Hi, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
And he was just in the car. He was making a joke about how when most people wake up, they're probably like, oh God, and I'm probably like, woohoo, you know, which is not true, but I do get quite enthused by small things. Like I do remember at school being like, each night I had a thing where I was finding it hard to fall asleep at boarding school because I was so excited about breakfast. I love breakfast. Like, but breakfast is epic, right? Like,
what's a good breakfast for you?
You know, again, now, since I've been part of being Daredevil, I have to be quite careful, you know, like I'm trying to eat better.
Right.
But like,
or when you're not, you're just letting go, all right?
Well, like, you know, in the UK, we have what we call greasy spoons. Yeah. And it's eggs, I mean, this list will go on. Eggs, bacon, French toast, beans, black pudding. You guys know what black pudding is? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
sausages.
Don't go too far down the rabbit hole.
I love breakfast. But that's actually, what about, like, that's the one thing that over here is challenging for me, is I never understood the idea of having pancakes at breakfast time.
You don't get pancakes?
No,
I just had pancakes for breakfast.
I don't get pancakes. And the other day...
That's fighting words.
The other day I went to this new restaurant that just opened in where I live in Williamsburg. I went to this breakfast joint, and it was I always like start really getting like trying to get back into shape exactly a month or like a few months before we start shooting. And so I'm recently, without giving away any dates, oops, recently started thinking about getting back into shape for the show.
For a show.
For a show.
A show.
Yeah. And because it could happen at some point. And I was like, right, day one, you know, fish, rice, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I showed up at this restaurant, and we barely sat down, and they walked over with the biggest plate of pancakes with chocolate Nutella sauce dripping off it, right? And they were like, we're huge fans. I was like, oh man, I'm too much of a people pleaser to not eat it. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't want to be like, thanks, but no thanks. You know, it's really nice. And my girl can't eat it because she's gluten-free. Elsie's definitely not having chocolate yet. So, just me. Just me. So I was like, I had to put it off by a couple of days.
So if you don't like Daredevil, you should just give him pancakes, but don't do it if you like it. Speaking of friends, who's Dior?
In my defense, I knew Dior didn't exist. Like, I knew it was a fake friend. Dior, again, your family don't let you forget anything. Wow, I did not think about that one. I woke up one morning, I drew on all the walls in biro, and my mum and dad made a classic error, which was when they first saw it with the rage and the horror. They made a mistake by asking the question, who did this? And so I saw a way out, you know, and I went, Dior. And they were like, who? And I'm like, Dior. Dior did it. And they're like, who's Dior? He's like, my buddy, Dior, lives in the cupboard. Only I can see him. And I was like, I am getting away with this, you know? Like,
by the way,
this is actually working.
You still have, because they still think it's an imaginary.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, you believed it. And I'm like, I definitely, I'm pretty sure I didn't believe it. But it is one of those things where, because it works so well, I maybe allowed myself to believe it a little bit for a little while.
I often wonder.
He died in an avalanche, by the way. Yeah. I don't know why that happened either, but at some point they brought up Dior, and again, a couple of years later, and I remember thinking, I need to put this every time it comes out, I'd like get cold sweats, because I was so afraid of lying. You know, I was like, I need to put this to bed somehow. And they're like, where's Dior? And I went, he went skiing, it's tragic, he died in an avalanche.
So, I often wonder if when I hear stories like that, it's obviously just incredibly active imagination, but also obviously thinking quick on your feet. I mean, it is sort of an early manifestation of what you do, right? For a living, you're making up stories, you're making up characters, you're becoming characters.
Yeah.
Maybe you were Dior when you wrote this. So I'm wondering, is Matt Murdock Dior, or was it Owen Slater? Owen Slater from Boardwalk Empire, who might have been Dior, right?
I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. That's funny.
So,
but like, what's that film? What's that really great film where they have pretend friends with Rick Mayall? Someone knows it. Drop Dead Fred. Oh, that is a good movie, isn't it? Yeah, that film.
Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of your friends, and like you said, you're not competitive at all, right? Not at all, right? Like
no. To be fair, I'm very competitive, but I'm a good loser.
Okay.
Like I don't throw things.
So explain this
anymore.
So hang on. So you and Charlie, right? You guys apparently, as best friends, were really, really competitive. I've heard a story about like this legendary 100-meter race when you guys were like 4. Do you recall this at all?
Yeah. When you're a kid, well, at least when we were kids, when you have running races, you would always say, I'll race you there and back, right? Well, we would anyway. We'd be like, okay, first one to the pillar and back. And then me and Charlie has an older brother, and we went to his sports day at school, and we were like the younger boys, and they have the younger siblings race, that, just for fun, to keep you interested, because you're there watching your older brothers do stuff and sisters do stuff. So we had the younger brothers, and none of us knew each other except for me and Charlie, who were best mates and hung out every single day. So we got to do whatever it is, the 100-meter run. And we were both, ironically, really quick as well. And so we no one said there and back. They just fired a gun. Right. And so we just ran to the end and then turned around and ran back. But then there was no end to the back. Right. So there was this period of time where both of us were just running, and it just went on, and all the faculty and like parents were trying to catch up to tell us it's over, and we both won. Yeah,
I heard a story about there was some art competition, and you guys had to paint Santa Claus, right?
Who told you this stuff?
A reporter does not reveal his source.
So this is one of my favorite stories. This is we went, you know, at day school, we went to, well, there's two things I'll tell you about Charlie. The first is...
He's not an imaginary friend.
He's not my imaginary. Charlie's my best friend. There's two things I'll tell you about Charlie. One is, do you know the Mr. Men books? Yeah? You guys know Mr. Men books? You have that here? Yeah, like Little Miss Sunshine, Mr. Grumpy, the little square things, right? So there was one, we were in daycare, whatever it was, daycare one day, and we found this one called, I don't even know which one it was called, it was like Mr. Silly or something like that. And we thought it was so funny, this book. And there were two of them, and we stole them. And we put them in our jumpers, like hid them. We were like 4 or 5, and we stole them. And we went home. And as soon as we got in the car, my mum, every day we would either go to one of the other people's to play. And we got home, and my mum was like, "Where did you get those books?" And we're like, "Oh, we just took them with us to school today." And Mum's like, "Yeah, right." So anyway, I don't remember because I was too young, but I know the next thing is we have to go to school like a couple of days later and publicly hand them back and apologize because, you know, it kind of became a thing. And I'll never forget, we got there and I was like shaking and crying. I was so upset about it. And we got there and like the school's at the assembly and the teacher's there and it's like an organized thing and I hand over my book and I say, "I'm really sorry." And then Charlie hands over his book and says he's really sorry. And then he reaches into his pocket and he takes out a snow globe and he hands it over. And he reaches into another pocket and takes out a couple of Mars bars. And he's had this like, he was covered in this like loot that he'd taken over the course. Like, in those 3 days, he'd really got a taste for it, you know? But the story you were asking me about, which had nothing to do with it, was what?
Santa Claus.
What?
The Santa Claus painting.
Oh, was it Santa? Yeah, so we had to do paintings, and every day you do a painting, like a finger painting or whatever. And years later, you know, one of these, Charlie did this beautiful painting, or beautiful for a 5-year-old, whatever. Then it's one of the ones they framed in the house, and it says Charlie G on the wall. And a few years later, he told his mum and dad, he came out, he's like, "I can't hide it anymore. I didn't do that." Charlie did it, and I was so jealous of it, I turned the C into a G and told them he stole my painting. And it still hangs in their house.
I was trying to get a photograph of it, just not enough time. So, there's a little bit of clickbait here, but McDonald's in a lot of ways was kind of responsible for you being where we are here right now, right? Didn't your dad call you to London to have like a lunch? And you were coming into, and you were looking for a job, you were going to apply at McDonald's?
Oh yeah, I applied at McDonald's to get a job.
Right.
Didn't get it.
Right. But didn't you meet some old friends and, yeah?
Yeah, so I guess you're right, actually. God, I hadn't, so...
I know more about you than you do.
Yeah. No, that's kind of how the whole thing started for me, actually, I guess, because my mum and dad had said, you know, you need to get a job, and so I went to, I lived in London, but I went to meet my dad for lunch to talk about what kind of job I was going to get. And he said, you know, just go and walk down the high street and look, so often they'll say in windows, hiring, and I walked down the high street and I went into a card shop and I went into McDonald's and, like, they asked me to get a CV. I'd never done, I was like 17, I didn't know what I was doing. And then as I was walking back to his office, having kind of failed, it was only day one, so whatever, I bumped into 2 guys who were neighbors of ours from a previous house who remembered me. And I was like, "Oh, hi." I knew them when I was like 6 or 7. And they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Actually looking for a job." It turns out these guys were like really good, famous, not famous, celebrity famous, but like high-end fashion photographers. And they owned their own company. And they're like, "We'll give you a job." So they set me up. I mean, it was amazing. I went back down to my dad, and he was like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got a job. I'm a photographer's assistant." and I worked there for like a year. But when I was working there, they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to be an actor. I want to go to drama school and I want to be an actor." And they were like, "Oh, we know a casting director." And so they introduced me to this casting director, and he got me my first job before I went to drama school. He auditioned me for something, and I got it, and that's how it all started. Yeah. McDonald's was an odd way in there, but I see
Yeah,
it.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now, I heard you worked at a woodworking shop too. Was that prior to?
I know what this story is.
And they apparently pranked you quite a lot.
I know this one. This is so awkward, embarrassing. So, yeah, these stories aren't making me look very good. I got a summer job as a okay, here's how it started. I was doing, for one of my exams, I was doing woodwork for one of my, like, we call them, like, GCSEs, right? I was doing woodwork, and I was not good at it. I was just really not, to this day, I can't really put up a shelf, you know what I mean? I'm really just not good like that stuff. But somehow I kind of ended up doing woodwork, and the teacher, one of the teachers really, really liked me, and he kind of helped me do my project. So it turned out really good. And I think he didn't want to look bad. So, because I was so letting the side down. Everyone else had a talent for it. And I grew up in London. I had no ability to do anything. And so he'd help me for it. But I didn't tell my parents, and they didn't tell my parents that I did not do that. It was like a desk. We made a desk. And my dad was like, you're so good at this. You should really consider, you know, taking it very seriously. And I was like, oh, it's not good. So he got me a summer job. He helped me get a summer job assisting some guys in a furniture store. And who were like, they were reclamation guys. So they would take old furniture and they'd reclaim it and make it look beautiful. It was terrible. And they knew I was terrible, and it was fine. Then I made them cups of tea, and that was basically how it went. But every day I'd have to go to the store to pick up something from like the home base equivalent of like, but it was a small store in a small town outside London. And they would send me every day. But then every like 2 weeks, once a couple of weeks, they would send me to get something that doesn't exist. And because it was every day, I would never remember to think it through. And I would just go, yeah, I'd write it down and I'd go and get it. And so there was a few of them that got me. I'm pretty sure I flagged a couple of them, but I went to the store to ask for a ladder for a skirting board. Do you guys know what a skirting board is? It's that little thing that's basically about 2 inches off the ground. So I went to go for a ladder. Do you guys know, tartan? Do you know what tartan is? Like that thing. So I had to go and buy tartan paint. And then I went to go and buy sky hooks. But the best one was I went in there, and the guy was there, and I was like, hey, John, how's it going? Can I get a long wait, please? And he went, and he was like, yeah, sure, man. And he went in the back. And I stood there for a minute, and I was like, a few minutes later, I was looking around, and then I was like, gee. And I looked back, and he sat on his chair in the back room reading the paper, and I was like, yo, John, can I get a long wait, dude? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, man. Yeah.
I never heard that one, but I wanted to hear.
Yeah, long wait.
But you pull off your own pranks, too.
Yeah, I love pranks, man. I love pranks.
Give me an idea of one of your favorite pranks, or one that's been, well, we already heard one pull on you. Give me an idea of a good prank. I mean, I've heard you pulled some, like reverse pranks too, which are always the best, right? When your friend's trying to prank you, but you know ahead of time. Like Ned told me about one where.
Wait, tell me which one did he say?
He told me the one about the radio interview. I think where.
Oh yeah, one of my first ever radio interviews. I was like really nervous. One of my first ever interviews was on BBC Radio 1 in the UK, and he managed to get the number of the radio show and called up ahead and said, yeah, I'm a friend of Charlie. He was actually, I was living with him at the time, and he called up and said, I used to know Charlie years ago from school, and I've always been fascinated. What was his obsession with Mrs. Doubtfire, the film? So on the radio show, she was like, why do you love Mrs. Doubtfire? I was like, I don't love Mrs. Doubtfire. It was like live radio show. It was really awkward. Yeah, but no, we're always playing pranks. I love pranks, man. I'm trying to think of like some of the best ones. I had a friend of mine in the States over here. This wasn't so funny actually, but he managed to convince me for a couple of months that I was expected in court, that I'd skipped a summons. And he had all this paperwork, and another friend of mine is a tattoo artist, and he did this beautiful design on my arm, which I love. And he designed it, and it was an original design of his. Through an elaborate, he planned this prank with another friend, and they over the course of a couple of months, they sent each other faux emails to make it seem like. And one day I'm at home and I get this email chain. And the email says, hey man, listen, I need to talk to you about this. I don't even know how to tell you. So just read the emails. So he planned it pretty well. So I was like, what's going on? So I scrolled down to the bottom and it's like this email like, oh dude, I don't know how to tell Charlie, he's gonna be so mad. And my friend was like, he'll understand, this is your business, you gotta make this, you'll get it right. And I'm like trying to read, and then it kind of eventually shows up that he sold the image on my arm to Victoria's Secret. I'm like, how much are they paying you? I'll find the money. You gotta get, I can't have the Victoria's Secret logo on my arm for the rest of my life. Anyway, it was a prank. Not real.
So, I've heard, I've seen it and I've heard about your commitment to travel, right? I mean, you commit to travel.
You have tattoos?
No.
Because that's something you should go into.
No, you know what?
I hear you can draw.
I've been known to draw, and that's precisely why I don't have tattoos. I'll tell you two stories. So I can't think of an image that I've drawn or that I've seen that I'm not bored with like 2 months later. So I couldn't imagine ever putting something on my, that I'm like, I really regret doing that. It's what I do for a living, so it's a little bit difficult. The only thing I ever thought about getting a tattoo was my daughter's name. That was the only thing I know why I'd never get tired of that. But then I'm also a coward and I don't like pain, so sorry, hon. But I hear you have a commitment to travel, Charlie, and you've traveled places that I could only dream of going at this point, and I heard about a surfing trip. You took a legendary surfing trip, right?
Yeah, legendary because we didn't know how to surf. And we decided it's now or never. We would just turn 30, me and my buddy Ned, and we just thought like if we're ever going to learn how to surf. Surfing's one of those things that you want to have done once. And when I say surfing, I mean actually stand up. And so we decided let's go surfing for a month and see if we can do that.
Right. Where'd you go?
So we flew into Panama City, and then we were going to drive to all the way through to Guatemala, which is, I guess I'm trying to remember now, but it's like Panama, I think Costa Rica, El Salvador, maybe there's another one in there, and then Guatemala, something like that. And so we drove the length of Panama surfing, and then we got to the border and realized we couldn't take the rental car. So we had to drive back across Panama to drop off the rental car back in Panama City, and then flew to Costa Rica and did it that way. And it was amazing. It was a beautiful trip and such a stunning part of the world. Didn't manage to do much surfing. We just kind of got the timing wrong. The waves were way too big. I remember a couple of days of just being like, right, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna get a wave. And then 45 minutes later, I'll be back being like, I almost made it out. I almost made it out this time.
Now, I also heard about a trip. You have like a sort of an intimate trip in relationship with the novel Shantaram, correct?
Yeah, I love that book.
Yeah, and weren't you like traveling across the globe, almost like following the chapters of the book?
Not quite. So, again, a friend gave me this book, and it's a really long book, and I'm quite a slow reader. And so he gave it to me on my birthday. I was like, oh, dude, appreciate it. Never gonna read it. It's way too long. But he said to me, just read the first page, and I challenge you not to finish it. And I did. I read the first page, and if you ever get the chance, it's an amazing book, amazing story about this guy in India. But I was unemployed at the time. I wasn't working. I was in London. It was cold, and I was loving this book. I read 100 pages of this book, and I was loving it. And I'm a little bit impulsive, and so I thought. And I was just reading about all these amazing places in India. So I booked a flight, and I went to India and finished the book in India. And I didn't so much travel the places, because that would be too much, but a lot of the book takes place in Mumbai, so I was there for a while, and then a lot of it takes place in Goa, so I went there.
Wow. So just
pretty expensive book in the end.
I was gonna say, hope it ended well. So there's a couple of things just so folks know. I mean, you're not on social network, right? You not a thing you care for.
Not on social media.
Right. I hear you're a hell of a chef. Hell of a chef.
Oh, that's not true. It's not true. I like cooking, but you know, my partner can't make cereal.
Right.
So, to her, I'm an amazing chef.
Okay. Got it. Hot yoga, dude. What's up with that?
I like hot yoga. Yeah. You guys
okay.
been to hot yoga?
All right, let's see if you guys...
It's like a kind of a cheat because I think you feel like you've had a real, like, crazy workout.
Right. So you go from there to polar bearing?
Yeah, I love polar bearing. I love polar bearing.
You guys
know what polar bearing is? Yeah, when you, like, polar bearing is when you swim in really, really cold water and, like, yeah. I love polar bearing. So, like, essentially, if I can find a lake or something where it's small enough that you have to break the ice, that's my favorite. Yeah.
That's just dumb, dude. There's just like no good reason for that.
It's such a good feeling. No, I love polar bearing.
All right then.
Yeah.
And you love your motorcycles, right? That's your
I do. I'm not really allowed one anymore, but I do.
Because you're a dad.
Yeah, I'm a dad.
I know.
And I'm kind of me who's not really allowed one.
Yeah.
But actually, you. So, Sam, we walked past this motorcycle the other day, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Look at that bike. And Sam was like, get one. I'm like, what? I thought I wasn't allowed one. And she's like, you can't stop someone doing something they love doing. If you want to get one. But you should know, Joe Casada told me this story the other day, and she told me a horrendous story, and now I don't want to ever look at a motorbike ever again in my life.
Well,
thanks for that.
She said I keep telling him horror stories. Oh, here, I got a couple, you know. Because there are, and I mean, I would love to get one too, but I'm forbidden.
Yeah, that's right. I found out you used to have a bike.
No, I never did. By the time I wanted one, we just had my daughter, and I was like, no, you're not allowed. You got a kid, got to be responsible.
Yeah.
You know, someday, maybe. I got a convertible. What the hell?
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, yeah. Woohoo! All right, so I want to open it up a little bit for questions. I know we have 2 questions here, right? But since Zuzu and Carly were so helpful, Zuzu, here, I'm going to come over to you. She has a question for you, Charlie. Hold on a second. Hold on. What's your question?
Can you tell about the whale story?
The whale story, Charlie.
The whale story?
A joke? Whale joke? I heard you told a good one.
The whale, okay, I love jokes.
Ah.
I love it. And I'm one of those weird people who remembers jokes. You know, people who say, oh, I can never remember jokes. I really remember jokes. Yeah, I guess I can tell this. Although, to be completely fair, it's my buddy Sean's joke. I'm totally stealing it from him. Sean, would you like to get up here and tell this joke?
You guys want to do it together? Come on, Sean. Come on.
All right.
Joke. Sean, ladies and gentlemen.
You gonna tell this joke, buddy?
I'll tell it with you, yeah.
All right, we'll tell it together. I mean, it only takes one of us, but we'll tell it together. So just a backstory. By the way, it's not a great joke. It's just I love dad jokes. You guys know what dad jokes, like really simple jokes? Right, do you want to do the sounds? I'll tell it, or the other way around.
You got to do the sound.
I'll do the sounds.
I don't know how we would switch that.
I'm just gonna tell the joke. All right.
I'll just be here.
But he's gonna be here because he told me the joke. So here's the whale joke. Oh, it's so lame. I can't. This is. Okay. Two whales are in a bar. One of them goes. And the other one goes, dude, you are so wasted.
Thanks. Thank you, Charlie.
That's Sean's joke.
All right. So Carly had one. Charlie? No, I said for Charlie. I was asked. So go ahead.
Can you tell us about the I shat myself joke?
Another joke? You guys want another joke? Oh, no. Okay. I guess because Carly said it, I can say it.
Yeah.
Okay, here you go. 2 old English gentlemen in a bar, in a pub, reminiscing over their lives. kind of drunk, and one of them says, well, I remember years ago, I was in the desert in India, and this lion came out of nowhere. It was about 8 foot long and 5 foot tall, and this thing, it walked straight up to me, and it looked me in the eyes, and it went, "Rah!" I shit myself. And the guy, his friend says, oh, don't worry, old chap, I'm sure I would have done the same thing. And the other guy goes, no, I shit myself just then when I went, "Rah!"
Thank you. You can thank Sam for that one. Sam made those requests. All right, guys, let's open it up for you guys. There's a mic over here. Anybody have any questions? Oh, mic over here. Sorry. Questions for Charlie. Go.
Hey, my name is Razi from DC. I just want to thank Joe and Charlie for doing this. This is awesome. And also congrats to becoming a dad.
Thank you so
It's the
much.
greatest thing ever.
Thanks.
And also loved you in Broadway Empire. So my question is about how faith in your life, both as an actor as well as someone you play on TV, has impacted either how superheroes see morality, and both in terms of the kind of the blurred lines of good and bad, but also, you know, why do you think now is a time to have people like Miss Marvel, who's a prominent Muslim female character, Daredevil, who's a prominent Catholic male character, to kind of be at the forefront, and why aren't there more, you know, characters that have faith as an identity?
I feel like that's a question that you should answer better.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. I mean, there have always been characters like this, you know, and to me, it's just, again, I hear the word diversity used a lot. Diversity, diversity. To me, the word for me is inclusion. It's always been about inclusion, right? We're all in this together, and we love characters of all shapes, sizes, creeds, religions, genders, preferences, whatever it may be. So I don't think we're doing anything different today than we did back in 1962 when Stan created these characters. You know, can we do more? Sure, we probably could do more. But to me, it has to come out of the act of storytelling. If we sit there, when inclusion fails, is when any company sits there and says, we need to fill a quota of a certain number of characters, because it doesn't come from story. It doesn't come from an honest place of creation. And that's why I think when you see characters like that succeed, you know, it comes from a place of creation. But thank you. So we're running really, really short on time, guys. So next question.
Thank you.
One other thing, I want to thank all you guys for coming here. I also want to thank all the volunteers that work the show. Let's hear it for those folks, because they do the great work. Woo! So yeah, go ahead, real quick, guys.
Hey, Charlie, how's it going? Thanks
Hey,
for
man.
coming out. You too, Joe. Question for Charlie. In Daredevil, the way you perform, like your eye movements, it's like really convincing. I have friends who have visually impaired, and how did you train for that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, Marvel, the production set me up with a gentleman who's now become a good friend of mine, Joe, who has been legally blind for 20 years. And I just spent a ton of time with him, and you know, I had a lot of questions. I filmed him a huge amount. The tricky thing was translating when he looks at me, what his eyes do, but then finding a way of doing that on camera is slightly different. So that's been one of the harder areas. But it's one of the things I think it's really important to get right, and was a great challenge. And thank you for noticing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Good
I
job.
appreciate it.
One of the things that I noticed also that you do that I love when you play Daredevil, and it's very, very subtle, are the head movements. Right? You know, we don't go into the extra sensory stuff, but sometimes it's almost animalistic in a way, the way that you pick up the sound.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the problems that of course we run into making, when you make a TV show or a film, you have something called a point of view, which means that, you know, you'll see a character, you know, he hears something, he sees something, hears something, he looks over there, and then the next shot will often be what we call a point of view of what he's seeing, right? With Daredevil, you can't have point of views because he doesn't see. So we have to find ways of having a point of view without having a point of view, if you know what I mean. So one of the things that I'm not convinced that if you know, the Daredevil would ever really need to, as you say, cock his head a little bit in order to hear something better, because of his hearing is so advanced. But in order to tell that story, hopefully realistically on camera, we need to tell the audience that he's heard something. Do you know what I mean? You can't, and so often you have to tell the audience that he's heard something that no one else has heard. Even the audience. Sometimes we don't even have that. Sometimes we just see Daredevil go, what? And we know he's heard something, but we don't know what it is. So that's where that came from. But I literally copied my dog.
Yeah.
Because
that's what I'm saying. I don't.
Yeah, that's what you say. I'm animalistic. That's what, you know, any of you guys have dogs, you know, if they're playing blah, 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 and then they hear something.
Yeah.
So it's not like that, obviously, but yeah, that's where I got it.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But I never took it as though it was a cue for point of view, which is interesting. I never knew that. But I did take it as though, again, it's almost like something, just the senses have perked up, like, wait.
Yeah, something's up. Yeah.
There's an electricity in the air, you know, whatever there may be. Next.
Quick question. Hi, Joe,
Hi.
Charlie, thanks so much for this. I'm Nat. I hope you'll forgive me a slightly Daredevil question. So any character that we see on screen is obviously some combination of what the actors bring to the table, the director, and what's on the page. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the struggle to bring a character to the screen that people have such a defined idea of already, and also like what elements of the Netflix Daredevil are Charlie Cox.
Yeah, great question. You know, I think a lot of it is luck. You know, I really do. I think I have to trust that the people that hired me knew what they were doing. And obviously I knew going into it that they were obviously going slightly against type, because I'm not particularly tall or muscular or redhead or American. You know, the thing that I do is that I read a ton of comics, and read very quickly, having never read comics, Daredevil comics, I very quickly realized that Daredevil within the run of the Daredevil years in print changes a huge amount. So there was no way that I was going to be able to kind of encompass all of those Daredevils. You know, like I think, you know, Frank Miller's Daredevil is very different to Joe's, to Jeff Loeb's, et cetera, and Michael Bendis's. So I kind of tried to find which of the comics best represented the script that had been written. I had the first two scripts of season one, and then just try and, you know, as an actor, the thing I try and do is I try to identify what do I have in common with this person and what do I not have, and then I work on the things that I don't have, and hope that the things that I have in common remain there. And you know, so I tried to, and I always try with the character. I always try to make sure that you identify with the parts of the character that you don't necessarily think of as very likable, because I think one of the reasons as humans, I think, with the way we relate to people is not just through the things that we admire about them, but also the things that we struggle with ourselves. One of the things I love about this Daredevil, the Daredevil that we play on this show, is that he has a really short temper at times, and he's quite short with the people that he loves. He can be quite close-minded, and at times, you know, if you're not willing to do it his way, then he hasn't got time for you, you know. And I try and, like, I want those to be there, as well as, obviously, the overarching factor that this guy is, all he's trying to do is help other people, and he's willing to sacrifice himself on a daily basis in order to do that and to help his community. So
that's a great question.
Thank you.
And what I could add to this, Charlie, is also, I was there through your audition process for you. And, you know, we had a lot of great actors come in, but what they didn't do that you did was that they all played him.
the head cop?
Yeah, they didn't have dogs. They played it very straight up. You know, sort of what you would expect, you know, the sort of the Frank Miller gritted teeth, like, you know, when it came to those moments. But you had a whole other perspective to him that I sat there after your first audition, I'm like, wow, I felt that was almost like Daredevil as priest, almost, because you were. I
remember thinking that if this was real, if you had these kind of abilities, you'd probably feel like a bit of a freak, you know, and you'd probably feel like quite ashamed a lot of the time, you know, and I wanted to focus on that stuff. Like, what would it be to have a superhero who goes home at night and is ashamed? Even though he's helping and trying to do good, he's ashamed of himself. In the same way that even at school, if you're a kid who's got something different about you, that might be something that's really great, but if it's different at school, it's painful. You never want to be different, you know what I mean?
And it's also the conflict, right? Because lawyer by day, vigilante by night, right?
But that's something that
Catholic during the day. Where's the devil's clothes at night?
Yeah.
There's a lot to be, you know, guilty, ashamed about. But I mean, your performance all through the audition process was so remarkably different than everybody, but always very, very consistent,
cool,
you know,
thanks.
so, but thanks for that question. Let's
Thank
do
you very
one more,
much.
guys. I'm sorry, we got a last one. I'm gonna get yelled at here.
All right.
I'll never be invited back to the show, so.
Hi, I'm Fisher. I'm a super big fan of Daredevil and of you, Charlie.
Thank you.
So, and this is like, I was shocked that I would actually be able to get to meet you and say hi.
Oh, thanks, man.
By the way,
So,
just real
my
quick,
quick-
how many of you guys knew that Charlie was gonna be the guest? Awesome, great, good, you did good. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
God, I'm so glad I didn't know. You guys didn't know?
No.
Oh, God, I'm so glad I didn't know that.
All right, so.
I'd be sat out there being like, no, they don't want to be here. What are you?
No, they knew there was gonna be something special. So did we get what we wanted? I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt. All right, you're the last one. Go for it.
Sorry,
No.
Fisher, go ahead.
All right, so I know you have a non-disclosure agreement, so just don't look at Joe when I'm asking you this question. Is there?
Or any of the cameras, right?
Don't look at those. Is there anything you can tell us about the Marvel Netflix universe? Anything upcoming? Daredevil season 3, Defenders season 2, anything? Can you give us anything?
What do you think I'm going to say?
I'm guessing.
Can you imagine if there's anything I could possibly tell you? Like, I'm already having, like, I'm going to walk off this stage, I'm already having kind of vaguely cold sweats about a comment that I made earlier on. I can't tell you anything, but I can tell you that you can ask another question, because I can't answer that at all. I've got nothing for you. And also, by the way, Fisher, just so you know, FYI, they don't tell me anything. Because, for this reason exactly.
You also don't want to know anything.
I don't want to know.
From your approach.
That's true.
Don't put it on me.
No, that's true. I don't like to know what when they get ready to shoot the season. I don't like to know what's going to happen because I actually really want to like enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right, then. Was there any comic books that you really read before playing Daredevil to get yourself into the role?
Yeah. It's a good question. And the ones that I know are the ones that meant a lot to me are the ones that I'm now rereading as I go in, as we get ready for another season of some show.
And don't say what those books are because you'll tip a little.
Don't say or do.
No, because you'll tip the story.
No, I'm not going to say what the books are. But there are. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that. Look, I love all of Joe's stuff. I really do. Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev's run, I think, is seminal. I think I go back to that over and over again. I'm rereading End of Days right now, the David Mack, stuff. And my other boss, Jeff Loeb, did a beautiful run, Daredevil Yellow, with Tim Sale, which if you haven't read is like a love letter to Daredevil. It's amazing.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and guys. So you guys know we love you.
Thanks so much, guys.
And
Thanks for
you so
having me.
much.
It's nice to be here.
His quarter, but he's going to commit to it. Been desperate trying to catch up in games and been forced to throw the ball too much.